What if I told you that the T-90 was never designated as T-72, and that you and all the people you've heard that from are wrong? I mean, you must have heard or read somewhere that T-90 was originally designated as T-72BU, but because of T-72's poor performance in Iraq, it got redesignated as T-90 to avoid the problems with the export. All of that is wrong. Now, listen closely if you want to know the real truth. After the T-72B model 1989 was developed, they wanted even better tank, something to further improve the T-72 series, as it was always behind the T-80 tanks in Soviet Union. But they didn't want to go easy on this one, they wanted to improve it completely. So the tank named T-72BU was developed, where U stands for Usovershenstwovanie, which means improved. This tank featured a completely new gun, 2A66, in comparison to 2A46M used by all Soviet tanks. This gun can be distinguished by the fact it has a muzzle brake, which no other gun Soviet tanks use ever had. This gun was also mounted on another T-90 resembling prototype, the Object 187. They also added Shtora 1 active protection system, which may be the main reason for why people consider this to be a T-90. It just has those dazzlers that look like eyes. Yet, it even wasn't the only nor the first tank to feature those. Shtora 1 was actually first used on T-80 UK tank. It is also worth noting that the previously mentioned Object 187 also had those dazzlers installed. The tank also, just like every other T-72, even to this day, had no remotely operated heavy machine gun, but the one that has to be operated manually by the commander only when exposed to enemy fire. This is also different from T-90 that had, and still has, remotely operated machine gun that can be operated from inside of the tank. The fire control system of T-72BU was the same as in previous T-72B models, the 1A40-1. Which was pretty obsolete for the early 90s. It didn't even feature the automatic lead T-80 and T-64 tanks had since the late 70s. This was also different on T-90 that did feature fire control system on par with the latest T-80U, which did feature automatic lead together with the other improvements. T-72BU also had an improved 1200 horsepower engine, which would have been a massive upgrade compared to 840 horsepower one the T-72B and later T-90 used. So what happened? A lot of things happened. The gun didn't prove to be good enough of an upgrade to put it into production, since more powerful ammunition for existing guns was developed, so the gun was scrapped. Another problem was that the engine proved to be unreliable and too expensive for mass production. You also have to consider that at the time USSR collapsed and everything was even harder to do. At the end, the entire tank was scrapped, since it wasn't necessary to upgrade the T-72 tanks to more modern standards after the collapse. Instead, a tank for the 90s was requested, a new, only Russian tank to break off from the old Soviet ties as soon as possible. The result of all the trials and tests at the end was one and only T-90. It was never named T-72 because it wasn't developed as one, it was developed as a completely new tank. Now, don't get me wrong, T-90 does indeed use T-72B as the basis, but it's so much different, it's more closer to, at the time, most modern T-80U tanks. First T-90s even had Agava 2 thermal imagers, only found on T-80U tanks, but they later stopped making them because they were too expensive and only passive infrared was used. So, in conclusion, T-90 was never designated as T-72BU because T-72BU was a completely different tank. T-90 was developed as a brand new tank and has as much to do with T-72 as it has with T-80. It's just a love child of both tanks. So, to get this straight, T-90 was never labeled as T-72BU. T-72BU was a different tank. Get it? Okay then, I'm glad that's sorted. If you like my content, you can always support me on Patreon, or maybe you want to join my Discord server. Both links are in the description, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.